Greetings, everyone. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
And
every time you say greetings, Tom,
yeah?
I think of, aliens from outer space.
Right.
That's how they greet earthlings in, kind of funny TV shows or cartoons when we were growing up. Greetings, earthlings.
Yeah, well, of course, sometimes in this program, we fall into the habit of saying the same things over and over. If you say something, then I say, that's right. That's right. You hear that's right several times during a program. So, yeah, I always try to think of different ways to start the program. Most of the time I say, hi, everybody. Hello, everybody. So I tried to say greetings today.
Actually, my best friend talks like that normally.
Greetings.
Yeah, she emails and she'll say greetings, Steph.
Yeah, or I could use Spanish, but hey, we're not allowed to speak any language other than English today because it's our all-English lecture, and it's also our News Watch unit. We've got some interesting news stories to talk about today. My goodness, I had no idea you could use your hair to soak up oil from the ocean if there's an oil spill. And also, somebody wants to sell bird poop. Interesting. Have you ever thought of that as a way to make money? I guess it's possible. It can actually help the environment by collecting poop from various seabirds like gulls, pelicans, and puffins. And we'll talk about that later in our program.
We sure will. You'll have to stay tuned for that. It sounds kind of gross. We will begin, though, as we always do, by reading through the two different articles. Mauritians cut their hair to save their oceans from oil. People in the island nation of Mauritius are battling an environmental disaster by cutting their hair, after a Japanese ship crashed and began leaking oil into the azure waters near the island. The Mauritian government declared a state of environmental emergency. Though the leak was halted after 1,000 tons of oil spilled out, officials are now hastening to drain an additional 2,500 tons from the ship before it splits in half. Meanwhile, the people of Mauritius are scrambling to contain the oil that was spilled. One remarkable material being used for this is the locals' own hair. Mauritian hairdressers have offered free haircuts and sent hair to be sewn into containment booms in the ocean. Human hair is known to be helpful for oil spills, as it collects oil in layers on its surface. Studies have found that hair can soak up 3 to 9 times its own weight in oil. Though it is admirable that people are banding together to provide assistance, this is tragically only one of many such catastrophes. We must reduce dependence on oil so these spills don't happen in the first place.
Saving seabird species by selling their feces. When it comes to conservation, some endangered species get more consideration than others. Seabirds like gulls, pelicans, and puffins are often overlooked. Now, scientists are hoping to raise awareness of their grave situation by stressing the importance of their poop. Though it seems off-putting, seabird poop, called guano, is estimated to be worth $473 million or more annually. Why such a high price tag? Guano is extremely useful as commercial fertilizer and can be collected from islands at no cost. It also plays an essential role in coral reef ecosystems by depositing nutrients there. The high concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus found in guano cause noticeable changes, increasing reef fish biomass by up to 48%. By conveying the worth of seabirds and their waste in economic terms, scientists hope that the public and government lawmakers will step up for the preservation of these animals. If not, the loss of these birds may impact us in more ways than we can comprehend.
Let's start, guys. We're going to look at our first newspaper article. The headline reads, Mauritians cut their hair to save their oceans from oil. At first I thought, what? What is this? Because the headline is a little wacky if you don't know how this works. And I obviously had never heard of this before. It's pretty amazing that something as simple and natural as hair can actually help battle those oil spills, which kill so many marine animals, fish. It hurts your beaches. It's a mess. So people living in the island or on the island nation of Mauritius are battling an environmental disaster. And they're battling it or confronting it by cutting their hair. Why would you cut your hair? That's so weird. I wanted to mention people in the island nation of Mauritius is correct, but you also need to make sure that you live on an island. So I live on the island of Taiwan. I would tend to use that instead of in.
Right. If you're talking about the island, yes, it would be on the island. But since Taiwan is a political entity, I think it's okay to say, I live in Taiwan.
Oh, I say that. I live in Taiwan.
Right. But I live on the island of Taiwan. Or you could also say, I live in Penghu, I suppose, because that's the actual name of the place. But yeah, the preposition for being on the island is often on if you're talking specifically about being on an island instead of in a country. But yes, we've got the island nation of Mauritius, and they're battling this environmental disaster of oil spills, or at least an oil spill that happened after a Japanese ship crashed and began leaking oil into the azure waters near the island. Okay, so in any case here, this is a island country in the Indian Ocean. It is east of Madagascar, and there are just a couple of islands there, and I think there's about 1 million or more than 1 million people living there. But I guess they had a problem there because a Japanese ship crashed there and began leaking oil into the ocean there. We're describing the ocean there as azure waters or bodies of water there near this island nation. Azure is a shade of blue, okay? It's kind of a light blue like the blue of the sky.
It's very pretty. You'll often come across this color word in more poetic writings, maybe in a poem, or if someone's trying to describe just a beautiful color of the ocean where it's clean. And typically the waters around the island or the ocean water around the island is clean, but not this time. We've got a Japanese ship. We call them oil tankers. A tanker, oil tanker, is a huge ship that just really is primarily used for transporting oil from one country that produces oil to another country that needs to buy oil because they don't have any themselves. So we have a Japanese ship, and it crashed, and of course, began leaking oil into the water. So if you leak something, it's just a little tiny bit comes out through some sort of crack or hole. When it says leaked or leaking, you know it was probably not on purpose. There was some sort of accident. I had a neighbor who was doing some laundry in her apartment, and she wasn't watching the sink. She was using her sink in the kitchen for some reason, and the water started leaking through the wall to my apartment.
Wow.
I was not happy. But yeah, a lot of water can leak if you're in the middle of a flood. Or maybe you have water leaking from your air conditioning unit down the wall. That sometimes happens. So the leaking of the oil began and really hurt the ocean that surrounds Mauritius, the island nation of Mauritius.
Yeah, interesting there. You've got a Japanese oil tanker having some problems there. It crashed and began leaking oil. And because of that, the Mauritian government declared a state of environmental emergency. Yeah, you don't want all that oil floating around in the ocean. It can kill fish. It can kill the coral reefs. It can scare tourists away. It can affect the fish supply, and people will starve or prices will go up. So yeah, it's it's just not a good thing all around. And though the leak was halted after 1,000 tons of oil spilled out, officials are now hastening to drain an additional 2,500 tons from the ship before it splits in half. So yes, this is an oil leak, and it was halted, or it was stopped. To halt just means to stop something. There was 1,000 tons of oil that spilled out until they figured out how to cap it, or how to halt the leak there.
Plug up the leak? I don't know.
Yeah, plug up the leak. And, of course, that's not all the oil. There's still 2,500 tons still inside the ship. And, of course, they're in a big hurry. They're hastening to drain that additional 2,500 tons of oil from the ship. So here, hasten, as a verb, just means to hurry up and do something. They're hurrying to drain that oil out, to get that oil out before it goes into the ocean because, hey, that ship might split in half because of waves or environmental things or whatever.
Well, it was damaged in some part of the ship when it crashed. So that's probably why that ship is going to split in half. What a mess. To use the word hasten, guys, is something we typically do in written English instead of spoken English. You'll often hear or see this word in newspaper stories. Maybe there are two countries that are having peace talks, and this move could hasten those talks along. Or my mother told me to hasten back home as quickly as possible so I wasn't late for dinner. But typically, it's seen more in written English and not spoken. But if you learn that word, it means that you've learned a pretty tough word. So congratulations. So hasten, just to do something quickly, to make sure it happens quickly. So we've got the people of Mauritius in the next paragraph, and we've got them scrambling. They are scrambling, the be verb, to be scrambling. Why are they scrambling or moving quickly? Well, they have to contain the oil that was spilled. What a mess. Scramble. To scramble, when I see that word as a verb, I usually imagine or picture somebody moving quickly in sort of an awkward way. Maybe you were crawling up the mountain to scramble back or scramble to safety quickly, but it's not a very graceful way to move. You also will use this verb to talk about making breakfast. You'll scramble the eggs in the morning. But here, notice we have the be verb before scramble. So they are scrambling. This is a movement they're making very quickly to try to contain or put that oil in one spot so that it doesn't hurt even more of the marine life and beach around the island. It's terrible.
Now, here's where hair comes into play. One remarkable material being used for this is the locals' own hair. Okay, so they're using the hair to contain the oil. That's interesting. Let's see how this works. Mauritian hairdressers or barbers, people who work in barbershops or salons, they have offered free haircuts and sent hair to be sewn into containment booms in the ocean. So they've offered this free service. If you offer, that means you basically volunteer to do something. Hey, we'll give you free haircuts so that we can collect all this hair. And then they send the hair to be sewn into something called a containment boom. Okay, a boom usually is a long pole, but in this particular case, I think it's kind of a barrier that goes out into the water. It's got the hair attached to it, and then the oil sticks to the hair that is attached to the boom, containment boom, something that contains something or surrounds something in a smaller area.
It's a great idea. We're going to take a quick break here, guys. We don't have the Chinese teacher for you, but we are going to take a break, but we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Okay, let's continue with our lesson for today. We're talking about a couple of news stories. One about people in Mauritius cutting their hair to save their oceans from oil. And the next story we'll get to in just a second about seabird poop. I bet you're all looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah.
But where we left off, we were talking about how the people of Mauritius are sucking up the oil out of the water. They use human hair, which is attached or sewn into containment booms in the ocean. Now, why are they doing that? Well, human hair is known to be helpful for oil spills as it collects oil in layers on its surface. So if you have hair, then oil will stick to your hair in many different layers, okay? And studies have found that hair can soak up to 3 to 9 times its own weight in oil. So here we've got a verb phrase, to soak up, which is what a sponge does. It soaks up water. Basically, it sucks the water into itself and keeps it there. So that's what hair can do. It can soak up oil, and it can soak up a lot of oil, 3 to 9 times its own weight in oil. That seems very efficient.
Pretty amazing. If you think about it, hair is very, very light. And the fact that it can actually take in all of that liquid is amazing to soak up. We'll also use this verb phrase, guys, to talk about learning. If you're a student in class, maybe you're listening and you love this particular lesson, maybe you're in a science class and your brain's just soaking up all of that information that your teacher's trying to teach you. Soak up. And of course, I like to go outside at noon to try to soak up some sun and get my vitamin D that way. So you can use this verb phrase in a lot of different ways. So soak up. It's pretty amazing that it can soak up 9 times its own weight. So though it is admirable, the people are banding together to provide assistance. This is tragically only one of many such catastrophes. So it's pretty cool that people are working together. Banding together just means people coming together to join their strength together, join forces to get something good done, get something accomplished. It's good to band together. And they're trying to provide assistance or some kind of help. It is tragic that we have these kind of catastrophes. It really does a lot of harm to that particular area. This, of course, is a very small island nation. But we have oil spills in America off the coast, and it kills so much of the sea life. And it's hard on the people who are trying to make a living in that area. It's just really bad. It takes a long time for that oil to actually eventually just be gone. It takes years.
Yeah, oil is pretty efficient in terms of providing energy, but there are so many problems with it. It causes these catastrophes like oil spills or whatever.
They seem to have quite a few of these. Too many.
Yeah, it just happens too often. You've got oil going all over the world in those oil tankers. Accidents are bound to happen.
Sure.
So, yeah, we must reduce dependence on oil so these spills don't happen in the first place. Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. We do have to seek alternatives like renewable energy or nuclear power or whatever. But we're still going to be in the sky. We're going to at least move from the ocean into the sky now. We're going to talk about seabirds. Those are birds that live near the ocean. And we're trying to save those seabird species by selling their feces. So we've got some seabirds that are probably endangered, and they're going to go extinct someday. So in order to help them, we're going to collect their poop. That sounds kind of weird, but that's what we're going to do.
It is kind of weird, I must say. So these are birds that are endangered, an endangered species. Could be any sort of animal group that's endangered. Just means we don't have too many of them left. We need to take care of them. Now, it says here, seabirds like gulls, pelicans, and puffins are cute, are often overlooked. If you overlook something, guys, it just means you don't actually give something the attention that it deserves. You fail to notice something. You might have overlooked someone in your group or your class. Maybe a teacher's not paying enough attention to one of the students. She overlooks that student's struggles, doesn't see that student needs more help. So we often overlook things in our world that we just don't notice. And it's not because we do it on purpose. Sometimes our attention is focused on other things. So it says here, now scientists are hoping to raise awareness. Talk about the problem more publicly so more people are aware, they know what's going on, and they're calling it a grave situation. Grave here just means very serious. A grave situation. They're going to stress the importance of the bird's poop. Poop is a pretty casual word. We use it instead of using, the scientific word, which is excrement. Feces is used a lot more, especially by doctors or scientists. But regular people, sometimes we just say poop.
Yeah, there are other words for it, of course. There are lots of words for this kind of thing. And so it's something that people think about a lot. So, yeah, poop is something we don't really want to discuss that often.
No.
But yeah, we're going to stress the importance of their poop in order to save these particular birds like gulls, pelicans, and puffins. I think they've got some puffins down there at the aquarium in Kending, if I'm not mistaken.
Aww.
And puffins are often birds that live in northern areas. I think if you go to Iceland, you can probably see some. I think they've got puffins up in Newfoundland and Labrador there in Canada as well.
They like cold weather.
But yeah, I guess because they're so far away, we don't really worry too much about them. So they're overlooked, and they want, scientists at least want us to be more aware of them. By stressing the importance of their poop, okay? If we seem to think that their poop is important, maybe we'll help those birds so they don't go extinct. Now, here it says, though it seems off-putting, which means kind of revolting or kind of gross, or it's something you don't really want to talk about.
Yeah.
Even though it does seem off-putting, seabird poop called guano is estimated to be worth $473 million or more annually. So yes, guano is the poop of seabirds. I think you also refer to the poop of bats as guano as well. And yeah, that is often used as fertilizer, so of course it is very valuable.
Fertilizer, of course, is something that we put on crops that we're growing. We put it on the soil. Typically, where I'm from, I grew up in Arizona, we use fertilizer from cows. So we call it cow patties or cow poop. Doesn't smell very good on the lawn, but boy, does it make our grass green. They're selling this commercially, so farmers are probably buying it. It can be collected from islands at no cost. Wow. So they're collecting it. It doesn't cost them anything, and then they can turn around and sell it for a pretty high price tag, which is nice. It also plays an essential role, an important role, in coral reef ecosystems. Oh, that's important. By depositing nutrients there. If you deposit something, guys, it just means you leave something somewhere. We often use deposit to talk about putting money into our bank accounts, like our savings account. So you deposit money. Deposit can be a noun or a verb. Here, of course, it's being used as a verb. So you're putting something down or setting something down in a particular place. So they're depositing some poop near the coral reef ecosystems, wherever the coral reefs are found. And it makes them grow better. It gives them more life because there are lots of nutrients in the poop.
Yep, nutrients like vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. So yeah, as the birds fly over the coral reefs, they poop in the air, and the poop goes down into the water and joins the coral reef. And in other situations, I think they put out these little bird toilets.
Really?
Yeah, and the birds fly up and they land on those toilets.
Are
and
you
they
kidding?
Sit
You're
down.
kidding. You're
No,
kidding.
this really happens. And they sit down, they squat, and the poop comes out.
Who
and
teaches them to squat?
Yeah, I don't think birds actually squat, but I was just making that all up. They must have some way to collect the bird poop or the guano. But yeah, they also deposit the nutrients in the coral reefs, so that helps them. And the high concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus found in guano cause noticeable changes, increasing reef fish biomass by up to 48%. So that's what's in guano. You've got high concentrations of a couple of chemicals there. Concentration is just a large amount of something in a small area.
Yeah, for example, when I was growing up, we would buy cans of fruit juice, frozen fruit juice. They had taken out all the water, so it was highly concentrated. So you buy the can of frozen fruit juice, and then when you get home, you would add water to it. If you didn't add water, it was way too strong. So concentration is just the relative amount of something that's contained in a solution of some sort. But yeah, high concentrations of two really important chemical nutrients. We've got nitrogen and phosphorus. They're both found in guano, and they cause noticeable changes, increasing reef fish biomass by up to 48%. This is a great result. That guano is actually helping the reef fish multiply faster. 48%, almost by half of what they were before. So that's pretty amazing.
Indeed, biomass, of course, I guess refers to how many fish are there, so that's good. And by conveying the worth of seabirds and their waste in economic terms, to convey here just means to present information in a certain way. So by stressing the importance of seabirds in terms of their waste, and stressing the economic terms or the economic value of the poop there. If you stress that, then scientists hope that the public and government lawmakers will step up for the preservation of these animals. If someone says, hey, we need to preserve these animals for the sake of the ecosystem, they'll think, don't worry about that. That won't be a problem. But if they say, hey, if you do that and you can make money from that, hey, you might be interested, and people will be.
Oh, money always gets people's attention, especially politicians. That is for sure. So they're going to try to communicate or convey this in terms of money. If you see economic terms, guys, it just means in terms of money. And so then scientists will hope that at that point, the public and government lawmakers, that's our legislative yuan here, will step up and try to also preserve these animals. Remember, they're endangered, so we want to take care of them. If not, the loss of these birds may impact us in more ways than we can comprehend. I think sometimes we don't notice the value of something until it's gone. Especially our wildlife, our natural wildlife that is around us, like our bees. They help pollinate other plants that helps them grow. We would be in a bad situation without our bees.
We would. So, yeah, bees, we need to recognize their value and not take these things for granted. We need to appreciate seabirds, especially because of their feces. Okay,
yes.
That brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Hopefully, these stories have been very informative to you, and hopefully your English will improve because we have discussed these subjects here. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.